Perfect. No sound. Love it.
I can hear you.
You can hear me, but everyone else can't because when we had the
sound sexy.
timer, I had to kill the audio because you were talking crap during during that minute countdown. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I hope you have your bevies with you. I've got mine. I'm changing drinks this time. Thanks to our tech team in the background there, they realised that we had no sound going out. Now, the feedback from last week was we went way over time, and so now I'm using a countdown timer to cut us midway. So we have a CHiNWAG, and then there might be things that we're talking about to do with CC libraries in our third episode. Jimmy to my left, Paul to my right, and we're all going to talk about how we use CC libraries and what it was like when we sort of discovered it and how that has a major role now. And then we want you to write in the chat and have some comments. Is there crazy echo? Oh, there's echo. Make sure we get this audio right.
Ooh.
Al's giving me the heads up that we've got echo. Unless it's all good now.
Seems to be fine to me.
All right. Well, we'd like you, about halfway through, we're going to stop and then answer some questions. So, welcome, guys. Oh,
Thank you.
No, we're being told that the audio's okay.
Oh, good.
It's good to see you, Paul.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Jimmy. It's been a while.
What are you drinking there, Paul?
This is Throat Coat, which is a little trick that you learn when you become a LinkedIn Learning instructor. Is that they have this stuff in piles there because you record your voice for 6 to 8 hours a day, and it's the only thing that makes my voice good.
And boy, is it good.
You can only, you can just buy it over the counter in Australia, in America, but here I have to order it online.
It is very difficult, very difficult. My missus did an amazing job after we had our master training program and found me some, and it took some time to get here.
Yeah, and I know it's I've tried everything in terms of my voice. This is the one thing where I can record a course for 7 days straight, drinking nothing but this.
Good advice out there for anybody doing presenting.
There you go.
Throat Coat.
So just give us a little bit of background, Paul, on your history, and obviously you've mentioned a little bit there to do with Linda. So you've done training, and so give us a bit of an overview of those of you who may not be fully aware of who you are and the sort of things you've done.
Okay, so I have been an editor since the early 2000s, and I feel like your first NLE, your first editing software is just something that the gods decide will be your first, and that kind of dictates what you want to use for the rest of your career. And for some reason, Premiere was the first one to come to me. And I got really sort of obsessive with the program and really stuck by it. And even as though my career sort of went on, a lot of people were saying, yeah, well, we really need you to do this in Avid or in Final Cut. I was like, look, I'm faster in Premiere. Just let me cut it in Premiere. And that's what happened until in 2010, I cut my first feature documentary. And I was like, I want to do this in Premiere. As it turns out, it was one of the first long form projects to really be pushed out in Premiere. It was 120 hours of footage. And that was a film called Red Obsession that went on to win the best documentary for the Australian Academy Awards. And that's how I met you, John. Although I met you, I think, while I was in the middle of cutting that. It sent me to New York. So I moved to New York, where I, started cutting for a lot of different people. But I also discovered something interesting, which was that the rest of the world was kind of waking up to Premiere as an editing platform, and they needed people who had real workhorse experience on how to use it. America telling people how I use Premiere in my projects, which ultimately led to work as a trainer for LinkedIn Learning. I have a course up there on Adobe Audition. But yeah, also showing up at a lot of Adobe events and things like that and talking there. I have just completed my third feature project in Premiere. which is due to come out later this year, which is a documentary called Blind Ambition. Yeah, I could just keep talking about myself, John, but that's pretty much it.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I like that. LinkedIn.com. Sorry,
Yeah, LinkedIn Learning. Used to be lynda.com.
Lynda.com, exactly.
That's right. Got bought out by LinkedIn. So, Jimmy, you and I have already spoken a little bit about our history, but when did you kind of catch on to CC libraries and that sort of start to make an impact on the way you were doing work?
Before I answer that, can you tell me when were they introduced? That's what I would firstly like to know.
That's an excellent question. I'm pretty sure it was late 2017.
So it was late. Then they had Marketplace and they had a whole lot of other things, right? Where you could search icons and download bits and pieces and assets and bring them into your project. And it was kind of like a free thing before the Adobe stock kicked off. Is that correct?
I don't think it was late 2017.
Because I jumped onto it to answer your question immediately. I didn't even wait. I saw it come up and I was like, oh, okay, so I can do something where I collect a whole lot of files that live in a place that I can draw from in every one of my programs and use. Oh, okay. Well, this is cool. And then you could do search. So you could actually click on the button, the Adobe Cloud button in your top panel, if you're a Mac user, in the top, drop it down, type into the Marketplace, well, I need an icon for something to do with...
An iPhone.
Yeah, a phone or a computer or a laptop or a church or anything, any little graphical image or a brush for Photoshop. You could go look for like brushes and stuff. I just started typing stuff in. I'm like, oh my God, you press a button, it syncs it, and then all of a sudden it's in Photoshop. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And I'm using it because it was free. I mean, now I think with this Adobe stock, you do have to pay for it and it has its place. But as a taster, I was in. I was 100% pulled into it. And I just started sorting stuff out. I've still got stuff in my current library that exists from those first days of the library. It's amazing. So
I did a quick check there, and it was introduced in July 2018. So you're right. I was a little bit ahead of my time. And because I work at Adobe and I was working at Adobe at that time, maybe I saw it in 2017. So
you probably did, because I'm actually looking back here in my files right now, and my first client, which was back in 2018, that's where it is. And it still lives there. It's not changed. It hasn't disappeared. Still the same assets that I uploaded back then. I've worked with them a few times, but it's one of those things that I just left it there because, they might call me up tomorrow and say, hey, do something. And I'm like, I don't have to go to their design department to get logos.
I would have to dispute that date, John. I think that's way too late. I gave a presentation on libraries and Marketplace late 2017 in California. And it felt like it had been around for at least 6 months by that stage, maybe even longer.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Well, I just checked the site there, and it just showed there on the site 2018. Unless, no, I'm just trying to think. That was a Bridge website link there for Adobe Bridge. And Adobe Bridge does have access to the libraries, but that's relatively new. Yeah, see, you didn't even know.
I didn't know about that.
So that's sort of one of the things that makes it easier for people who are not super creative people to have Bridge on their system in order to kind of curate stuff. So I just thought what we might do is jump onto my screen at first here and just show what libraries is, where you can find them. So those of you out there that are wanting to have a play with your own copy of it, then you can start to make use of it. Now, when you open the Creative Cloud desktop, it usually opens up on the Apps tab. And you get to see, obviously, all the things that are installed. Mine tends to always open up on updates, what's going on, and I'm testing the beta apps all the time. And I encourage everyone to jump on and test them all the time. But next to the apps is the Your Work tab. And this is where you've got now a tiny little column, and this little column at the very top there has got your libraries. And this has got a list of all the libraries that either I own or that I'm a collaborator on. And you can see where there's collaborators I've added or that I'm part of that are with this little icon here, this tiny little, I suppose bust is the best way to describe it. Let's see if I can get my zoom magic working here. There we go. So you can see this little bust, and then there's another one here, the starter assets. There's a little logo there that's a public link. So you don't just have the ability to add collaborators. Now I'm on the Adobe CHiNWAG library, which I've shared to a few different people in the team, and we can see who they are, right? So Paul, Chris, Jimmy, Alex is on there too. And when you add in someone's name, you're basically adding in their Adobe ID, and then you set the rules of what it is that their access is. They can just view it and sort of lean on a synchronizing, staying in sync, always updated copy of the library, or they can edit it and they can add things into it.
Probably don't want to show people's email addresses publicly there, bro.
Well, yeah, that's true.
We're going to get trolled.
Maybe. The other thing you've got here is at the 3 dots there. I'll just move that over. You've got this link, and the link allows you to send out a public link to a library. And this is really good when you've got someone who doesn't use any of the creative tools, but you can share out a link that has a link to all the assets that you use as part of branding. And so you've got the different types of things that you can have in there are, you know, the color palette, different design elements that you use as well. In here I've got little audio snippets, so little swooshes and other little sound effects.
With that new stuff, with the audio stuff, John, is that new? I know that's new. Is that going to extend to doing more audio, or is it only going to be very small stuff?
At the moment, it's just super small stuff. So small bits of video, and it doesn't matter really what codec it is for video, as far as I've been able to test. You can have like little bits that you might use for overlay, so it has an alpha channel, and that'll work.
So 100%, I think this is asset. It's an asset. It's not giant chunks of video that you're going to use. It's not stock footage. It's not a library of stock video that you can then lean on. It's more assets for completion of said video that you have on your drive. Let's say that
exactly
clients
right.
are doing a real estate video, like we talked about with the guys the other week. They have this library of assets for each brand, each client, and they can bring those in and then brand their videos with the footage that they have locally. And the question that I now have is for Paul, and that is how does he use the library? How does he organize? How does he get it done? What does it do for him?
I've been using it for such a long time, and what I would do is for my After Effects projects, when I would get a new project, I would create a new library, and in that library I would be throwing assets that I'm going to be regularly drawing on for that project, but also the color palettes as well. So like if the client has a particular color palette for their logo or something, I'll have that in there so I can just quickly eyedrop it when I need it. But really where it's sort of taken off for me in the last, I don't know, probably year and a half is Mogets, is storing Mogets in my library. It's just the easiest way to jump between After Effects to Premiere, have everything, because at the moment I'm making YouTube videos for Premiere once a week, which means you got to have some pretty solid assets that you can just quickly depend on to throw in the timeline. You're not creating something from scratch every time. You just need those template files. So my, animated logo is in there, my color palette's in there, and all of the Mogets, so lower thirds and things like that, are all in there that I can just drag them in.
100%.
And that just makes cranking out a video once a week so much easier. So much easier.
Yeah. And I agree with that 100% because I do that as well. I always put up, and I have version numbers because sometimes it can be confusing because you can often, when I export Mogets from After Effects, you export it straight to the library instead of exporting it locally and then importing it. It's just like send it to the library. I don't really care.
Yep.
Sometimes I can have versioning where I'm updating it because they wanted the background different or they wanted to change the fade on the edge of it and it took too long and they want to make it quicker. Then I would make sure that I reversion it when I send it to the library. But then again, in Premiere, obviously you can drag it in and change all instances of that particular thing. So it just sort of updates it. And yeah, I agree. And having the ability to then sort them by group in the library sort of assists that process also. And if you keep yourself well organized, it's just bang, 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 make a video, right?
And it's a little bit different with logos as well, because this is something that I have really pushed on broadcasters when I'd go in and do consulting with them, is that they would all have like bugs and like static bugs, static lower thirds and logos that would sit in folders, and they would start naming logos things like, 2020 version, or use this one, because they just have so many different logo versions there, and they're trying to indicate to the editors, this is the one that you should be using. In terms of logos and stills, which is different to working with Mogets, the amazing thing with libraries is you replace that asset.
For sure.
So you replace it and it ripples through everybody's project.
Yeah.
If you don't want that to happen, there are things you can do to prevent that from happening. But the idea that you just open up a project and it's got the latest bug that the graphics team wanted you to use, they didn't have to send you a path or an email or anything like that, is just a much better way of working.
100%. Yeah.
So someone's just asked about seeing how this sort of works. So Jimmy, do you want to fire up your screen share, and we'll just switch over to me for now while all that starts to get fired up. The one thing about adding stuff into a library, I think what we might try and do is show how you make one in the beginning. So I might just...
what do you want to see?
Well, I want you to show us how you go about using it and it replaces stuff. Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, so I can show you right now. Here's the screen that I've got. Okay. Can you see that?
It's coming up. Give me a sec. There we go.
So this would be an example of a library that we have set up together as part of the CHiNWAG group. So if I pull my Adobe screen in here, you can see under my work and the Adobe CHiNWAG that this is a shared library, and it's been contributed by a number of people, and it's been sorted by colors, graphics, character styles, layer styles, and then JB's thrown some audio in there, which is a new feature that I didn't know about. That's synced to my Premiere Pro libraries panel. So you can see that this is my libraries panel. And here we have a number of assets that can be looked at. You can't drag colors in, obviously, because the color schemes, they are for your Illustrator, your Photoshop and stuff like that. But they still live there and you can still see them and you can still reference them. But you've got title design, and if I can grab an Adobe file, I can just pull this CHiNWAG file down. It jumps into my timeline. Then immediately I've got that. I'll show you my window so you can see it.
I'm doing one of those zooms on my side, so we're zooming in on your screen a bit.
My program window has decided to have a bit of a heart attack, but maybe it's because of the screen share. But what I'm doing is I'm dragging elements in, and you can see as I drag them in, they appear on the timeline. So I can use each of those assets as I need, depending on what it is. So this title design, you get a lot more granular in the way you sort your library, so that it's like start a video, middle of video, end of video. And then your editors are just grabbing these items and pulling them straight onto the timeline. Again, I'm not sure why my program window has decided to shit itself. But
I think how many monitors have you got running?
I've got 3. I'm running 3. So
maybe pop it out or something.
I've tried to. It's not.
Like pull it off the tab.
There we go.
For now, yeah, that might.
No, it's still
white.
Still giving me hell, mate. So that's a fail on live stream number 1. But you could see that I was dragging them in, so you can see that I was pulling them straight in there.
Oh, that's me alarm. See, I'm all over it this time.
What's your alarm say?
It's halfway point, so we're just going to double
okay.
check that who's got any questions and things like that. While that's happening, I would I'd like to show you something that's a bit new-ish, and a lot of people probably don't know that this exists. So I'm going to go over to my screen.
I'll unshare mine. Just hang on, because the thing is, I can't. It actually doesn't. Premiere's not letting me play on Microsoft at all.
Oh, well, for those of you who deal with Microsoft documents or like Word documents or PowerPoint, both PowerPoint and Word actually have got a plugin for the Creative Cloud. And that means that the Creative Cloud libraries can be utilized by people who are not creative but need to use either the color palettes or the font related templates or any of the graphics for any of their documentation that they're doing or presentations that they're doing. So that's something that's not super new. Oh, okay, wonderful. It's telling me it cannot connect to my cloud, and I think it's got to do with my sync. It will get there. Let's see if I can try and get there at some point. I'll try and sign in away from screen.
Yes, just put all your details up on screen, please.
I find it helps to put your credit card number in.
Just,
if you just
can I have that too? Come on, I'll screenshot it. I've got my screenshot standing.
Well, I should have you guys on screen now, and I reckon as we come back from the
I don't care, mate. Don't put me on screen. Just give me those credit card details.
As we've come off, you guys have swapped over, so I'm going to do this trick to swap you back. Oh, hang on. No, I've got a pin. Oh, everyone's getting a lesson in Teams. So now I swap you guys back.
My Premiere's crashed.
There we go. And you're on the right sides.
There we go. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. So did you guys know that it worked inside of the Microsoft tools as well?
Not at all.
No. No idea.
It's been around for about a year now, and I use it all the time because I'm doing presentations all the time, and that's become a very handy place to grab icons or logos if I'm doing a presentation about sort of customers that I've been dealing with and doing a bit of a monthly report, things like that. So that's super useful too.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that for me, I use Illustrator quite a lot because clients give me their style guides, but then it takes me months to try and get any original graphics out of their design department. So if they've designed their style guide properly, you can jump into a PDF through Illustrator and pull out vector graphics. And I would just start building a library based on vector graphics out of a style guide PDF. And then once that library comes in, I find, oh, well, they're exactly the graphics that I already have in Vector that I've populated my library with just to help inform my edit, which it needs an opening logo and it needs this, and I'll build a lower third that looks like this and blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, that looks great. You send them a first reference edit because they haven't sent their graphic design department or the agency still hasn't sent you original graphics for anything. You send them an edit that you've done based on a PDF style guide, which you've populated a library with. And then they go, oh, that's great. We like it. The edit's great. Just change these 2 lines and it's approved. And then you're like, oh, great. I didn't have to spend all that time dealing with the people in their art department or the agency with their graphic design stuff. And then you've got that library for the next edit and they're happy with it. You just start to tag things saying, well, they were happy with that. They were happy with that. You shoot some footage, you come back, you do the whole thing again. It takes you half the amount of time, and then you send it to them. They're like, yeah, great, we love it. That's the best part about libraries. You just assemble it, and if things aren't working, they don't like them, you just delete them out.
And how do you organize? Have you got multiple libraries?
For me, I've got tons. So my libraries are they're sorted by client. So each client they have and then I just sort them by like icons. So I'll go through. A lot of the style guides have an icons template where they will just show this means this for our company. So they have their own brand icon. So that goes into my icons folder. Then I have their key graphic designs, primary colors, and then I'll have character styles. Sometimes I'll have additional layers, additional brand guides, additional colors, things that they say in their style guide. Like I'll have font notes, so you can grab a few fonts and put them in there. But again, I just pump it into the library when I first get a style guide, and then I know that things are going to be delayed, and then I know that things might take some time to talk to their design people, but I'll just make an edit based on what I've got, what they sent me, and it generally works. Like I'd say 8 out of 10 times they're like, oh, that's great, you've got it looks like our colors, the designs are right, that's cool, go for it.
You know, when I started out using libraries as well, I was kind of interested in, because I think it started with libraries and then stock came along and you basically access Adobe stock through libraries. When that first happened, you would pull from Adobe stock like a low res version of what you want to work with until you buy it. You throw it into a Photoshop file and start playing around with it, and then you were happy with it. Now I'm talking back at the start of Adobe stock here. When you decided that you wanted to buy it, you would click buy, but it would give you the high res version when you'd been working with the low res version, and you'd find you'd have to go in and start scaling it all again. Yeah. But I'm back at a place now where I find that I'm doing a lot of work in Photoshop, and they have fixed that, and it is beautiful. Like it is unparalleled that you can pull in low res watermarked stuff, get it to a point where you're convinced that you want to buy that asset, click buy, and it's just a simple replace. It is so good.
Yeah, and that's adaptive as hell, which I love that fact, because you're right. Yeah, I had exactly the same issue where you're just like, okay, now I need to resize, and then I go into my After Effects comp, and then I need to change this and do that. And so that's again, it is because it is adaptive. And that could drive us into an essential sound discussion, which it's not, but it's that thing, which is that it's kind of grown up enough to, you don't, once you put it in, you use it, you work with it, you don't have to, once you purchase it, then rework it all over again.
Yeah, particularly if you're like, because sometimes I have to know that I'm going to be able to like pull an acceptable key on something before I buy it. Yeah. So you go to all the trouble of keying something out, and then it's like, oh, I've got to do all of that again.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh my God, because it's full res. Oh, gee. Yeah, forget about it. Yeah, 100%. Sorry, go.
I was going to say, one of the interesting things I found out just by really digging into the way that it works, and maybe people are questioning how it works, is that you add everything to your library, but what you don't know is in your Creative Cloud folder that is on your computer, on your desktop, there's actually like a hidden folder that is maintaining all of that library stuff. So it's all offline there. So if you lose the internet, but you still need to be dragging things in, you'll still have access to it without an internet connection.
Absolutely. Continuity on that is amazing.
Yeah.
Because once you again, it is that virtual. It's like, I kind of describe it to people. It's like a Dropbox thing where it lives locally. It doesn't. It's not just in the cloud, because people are like, well, what if I can't connect to the internet? I get that question all the time.
Yeah.
And I just say, look, well, it's not dependent on that. If you've had a shared library and it's had the time to sync, if you're working on it on your laptop in bed because you just want to do some final slight graphic adjustments to stuff, it's on your laptop. It's not dependent.
It's not hiding.
It's not dependent on whether you're on the internet. It's not pulling it off the internet when you play it. It comes into your system. And then people do say, oh, is it going to fill my system up? Well, yeah, it might, but you're not going to have that shared library forever. And you can turn it off and turn it on depending on who you are. As a post supervisor, I like to have control of everything, so I make sure that I have enough room to keep all of these libraries alive, so that when I bring people on and then offboard them, or onboard them and then offboard them, that I still have everything. They don't need everything. They need it for as long as they're using it, and then they go off and do the rest of their lives. So
And it should be small assets anyway. If you're
Exactly.
if you're uploading a 90-minute documentary to your libraries, you've misunderstood the use of the feature.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a
Just, I
super
like to
important
drag and-
thing. A lot of people get confused by CC files and then CC libraries. And so libraries is where you, and I'm interested to get your take on the way you describe it, but I always talk about it as your branding assets. So these are those little bits that are repeatable, that kind of stick to the brand. And then if you've got any files that are large that you really need to work, that actually need a lot of reworking and arrangement, and they might go in, they might not go in, they might be chopped up into lots of little bits, that's where the CC files kind of files go to.
Yeah.
How would you
And
guys
100%.
describe it?
I would describe libraries as a very, very fast track to a first version edit to a client that allows the editor to just go, oh, these are assets that I've been given, and I can use these to inform what my edit is. I've got brand colors, I've got some assets, I've got graphics, I've got stuff that I can play with, which is very easy for you to say, look, I love what you did with that logo, but that's not going to work. But at least they had a go. It made it fun for them. They could pull it in. It's like a 3 kilobyte file. If it's an Illustrator file, there's no weight to it. So they can just drag stuff in and play with it, and it's a fast track to them getting a final look product or a first look product that has some semblance of a brand feel to it. It's not just a rough cut because they don't know that they haven't been given graphics for. That's my take on it, Paul.
Yeah, no. Like, I think branding toolkit is what it is. You know, these are the elements that I need to, the small elements that I need to regularly draw on throughout my project. Now, I do use the Creative Cloud assets a lot as well. All of my training materials are in my assets folder, because if you called me up today and said, oh, we need you to go to Queensland and do a training course there tomorrow, I know all I have to do is sync up my assets folder and I've got all of those training materials there. But it's basically those little things I need to drag into a project regularly. So lower thirds, logos, animations, things like that.
Motion graphics templates.
Motion graphics templates. Yeah. But also, having a quick place to access the stock footage that I've paid for too.
Absolutely.
It's like, I used that shot a while ago. I'd like to use it again. I don't want to have to go to the Adobe stock website and download it. I want to be able to just drag it from a library.
100%.
Yeah.
Stock footage works. Again, Adobe stock works really well with this. Again, with also Essential Sound, you can bring your clips in that you want, your music and stuff. It's like the Adobe stock video stuff. It's sound stuff. It comes in, it lives there, and then you can sit there and see your little trolley thing, which I could show again if you want, John.
I can bring it up. I've been setting up for it.
So
there was a question. I've already got it up, mate. Andrew Hicks has just mentioned in the comments there that they've got Andrew Hicks was on our first episode from BWRM, Black and White Real Estate Media, and he's mentioned that they've got thousands of assets and they've never had any issues in there. You can have 10,000 assets inside a library, so there is a limit, but I don't think many people will hit 10,000 snippets of stuff that they would use that's part of that stinger or that little bits of branding that you don't need to change. You just alter bits of it, like text copy, because it's a motion graphics text-based thing. So the look and feel is locked, and that's the way that you go about deciding what kind of bits go into the libraries. So on my screen...
Originally, just before you jump into that, there was no groups, so there was no jumping sorting things into groups. Now you can make groups, and it is adaptive. It does seem to, if you bring a font in, it kind of makes its own font group, but you can have as many groups as you like, and that has changed the game for me, because now I'm like, I've got logos, then I've got colors, then I've got fonts, then I've got artwork, then I've got everything else that might be granular on top of that, which is lower third artwork, mogets for lower thirds, mogets for title screens. I also have slates, so that I can bring in slates for each job, so I don't have to recreate a slate, because the The client doesn't need to. They want to know what version you're on, what date it was exported, what the color space is, and all this other stuff. So I have basic slates for each client, so I don't have to recreate a slate for every client. That just lives in their library, which is based on a singular slate which I originally created years ago, which I then just update every time a client comes on board. I recreate the slate, have their own Moget, and then I can just change everything, drag that in, do it. It just makes things so much quicker, because you're not sitting there going, I have to recreate the same slate again, and title and 16:9 and aspect ratio, and oh bloody color space, and grade mix, just audio mix status,
And Jimmy, you hinted at this, but you were talking about the ability to collaborate on a library, right?
Yeah.
And so you can invite other team members to collaborate on a library, which means you're all sharing the same assets, and you can discontinue that collaboration if it's a freelancer or something.
100%, which is I do on a semi-regular basis, but I also have the same people come in and out of projects, but I don't need them syncing.
Yeah.
Because in the old days, the thinking was, well, why don't you just create the one folder for the one freelancer, and then you just keep dumping stuff into it. I just said, no, that's silly, because then they're just getting assets from everywhere. You want to invite them to multiple folders based on their actual need for each project, which worked far better. And then now that you can actually do libraries separately, I have the same approach that I did with CC files, which was they get invited to the folder they need for that project. It's their job to sort it properly on their end. But then now with libraries, I invite them to the projects that they're working on at the time. They get updated, they get the information that they need. And then when that project finishes, I'm like, great, send me an invoice. I, turn them off. I just say, disable their privileges to that library and that folder. I've still got all the masters, and they don't have to worry about it. I say, delete it off your system. Don't worry about it anymore. And then it's gone. And if they need to come back, we've got changes 3 months down the line, re-add them to the library. Boom, they've got the assets again. They pretty much start from where they finished. So
yeah.
It's good.
There's a few different ways. I was trying to do some screen demo there as you were talking about the sharing. I mentioned earlier in the Creative Cloud desktop app that you can use the little icon in the top right, which has got the little plus over the top of a bust, and then you can invite people that way. The other way is if you are inside the app, you can go to share as well. My sync seems to be out of whack at the moment, but basically it takes you to the Creative Cloud web, and then you can be basically doing the same sort of thing where you, from your browser version of what you're looking at inside the Creative Cloud desktop, you can then invite them through their Adobe ID.
And then once you invite those people, John, it appears immediately in their library. So if I was in Premiere, for example, I didn't have all of this Adobe Video CHiNWAG stuff. And then as soon as you invited me and it did the sync process, I opened Premiere again, and then boom, it's right there. And I'm just dragging and dropping it straight into my timeline. I did that promo within 20 minutes this week. Admittedly, I had used Premiere Composer, which is Mr. Horse. It's a bit of a cheat, but it makes things very quickly to, you can make a cool looking product with these transitions with sound effects and stuff real quick.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been able to do that if that library hadn't sunk to my system, which you shared with me. That's how quick it was. As soon as you shared it with me and it synced, which didn't take any time at all, boom, I was ready to go.
Yeah. So someone's asking, we'll wrap it up now. We're right on time. Someone's asking if there's a way to sort of share a library and start getting a sense of that experience. I have got a link that I set up with a form, so you can log in and kind of give us your details. And then that way we're not putting your email out on public, like I was just showing the group of those that had been invited. So if you're interested, there is a link. I think I'll just see if I can get one of the other team to throw that link in, and we'll make up something, just some random thing, and you can start to play around with it. If you want to continue the conversation, join us on Twitter. The Twitter handle is @AVChinwag. That's all one word. AV for audio video or Adobe Video, CHiNWAG. And I just want to thank Jimmy for coming back again, and Paul for making the time to come in as a guest co-host. Thanks, guys.
No worries, John.
All right then. Well, we will bid you adieu. I'm going to have my drink. Fellas, do you have a drink to end the evening with? You have your special tea. Paul, wonderful. Jimmy, you drinking anything? Have you frozen? Jimmy's frozen. Or he's disappeared. You're still going, Paul. It's just you and me, Paul. Oh, there's my alarm. Wonderful. Perfect timing. So there we go. That is episode 3. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you in the ether. We'll catch you next week, and we'll announce what next week's topic is across all of the social platforms we've been sharing our reminders for our new episodes. Take it easy. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Paul.